Okay, a year after writing this book, I had to come up with some things that I could sell on the side because, 20 bucks just wasn't cutting it. So um, I decided to write up an online course. And I actually hired this person out of Africa. Um, Now, this team is unbelievable. They're showing how my book actually coincides with the Bible, which, under my amazement, because this, as you know, started off through a divorce, and then it went through all the professionals, and I started seeing how all the professionals came from the inside, where this thing turned into the God thing. It amazed me. I was blown away. And I was saying, if you don't do this in this way, you're not going to see the way the God thing's really meant to be. So, I mean, I owe that, I guess, to my ex wife because of my persistence in everything that I do. I am just the most persistent person. You can find my name in the dictionary under persistent. I'll tell you that right now. So, anyway, this person has written this long thing that I gave him my book and said, hey, do a sophisticated book report and send it back to me, and I'll make my changes and write what I need to do. But now, mind you, this person doesn't know what I wrote, and I've already gone through all of this, and now she's, writing up what she believes is the truth about the Bible, which is extremely knowledgeable, far more than me. I can tell you that right now. But uh, now she's written probably 119 pages so far, and I'm just amazed at what she's written. But she's coming up on values that I wrote in the book that I've grown since then. I'm amazed at what I wrote. Now, she's talking about, religion and science, how different they are, but I've come to the conclusion that they're really the same. Now, it's the same only when you come to the absolute truth. And that absolute truth, she puts, that you can't succumb to. And I differ with that in its completion, because I found the way through looking how to find only one truth. And I've shared that with you on the spiritual side and the human side, and when they merge together. With that being said, the polar opposite words come together, and we add that into the dictionary along with other things that we're going to have to change some rules and regulations to be able to adapt to what I uncovered. And I've sent that, as I've said, to the three scientists, Bruce Lipton and Greg Braden, to verify what I have uncovered. And I'm at their disposal if they don't understand what I wrote, because it's not that it's complicated, but you look at it in a different way. And if you don't see it in an analytical way, you're going to skip right over it. That many people that have read my book skip right over it and don't. I mean, it's funny, they don't even acknowledge it. And but for the person that reads it slow and understands it, and doesn't make an opinion or a judgment prior to it, they're the ones that get the most out of it, and they're amazed. They're just it's crazy cool. I'll tell you that right now. But the truth is, as I was writing this book, I was still seeking. I was looking for the truth. Um, and now that I've found it by this person going back and doing a sophisticated book report, that's what I call it anyway, I'm actually waiting to change the last portion of it. She's only maybe 3/4, 75% done. Um, and I'm waiting to change all of this, but I can't do it now. I really have to wait to the end to show where it is that for the universe, the questions that have science and religion merged together the same way as the spiritual side and the human side, because religion is kind of the inside and science is kind of the outside. So all of this has its patterns that are literally perfect. And we typically don't take a look at religion as being the inside. Like I just read here where she wrote about the Pope. He's, it came out of the book, obviously. He's the leader of the world from the inside. And then the person at the time that has this knowing, which is the same as Oprah, Deepak, Anthony Robbins, all these people that I've put that are pros, are ones that the light bulbs have clicked on for them, where they know themselves that they are God, and they've put that together in their business and have done a phenomenal job at it. The other person that has done that as the president of the United States was Bill Clinton. For some reason, I have that belief that he knows too. When I say knows, I'm basically saying that he knows God the right way. And that doesn't mean that you know everything. And I've written to that in my book as well. But it's really a cool thing taking a look at how I succumb to this information. I mean, this information I didn't get from the church's teaching or anybody else. It was mainly the pros and my life through the divorce. And then I just kept enhancing it and building on it. And for years, I just kept going. I mean, it kept coming back to me. And it was so solid in the lessons that I learned in for myself. I caught on to where all of these pros, what they were teaching and how they were trying to teach the general public or humanity to catch on. Like Oprah's been throwing out these little pieces for years, trying to get the public's general knowing to know who God is. And I get that, and I saw that. Now that's been, 25 years ago. I mean, well, it was a couple of years after the divorce that I found all of that information out. But not until 2015, after I watched her Tough Questions on God, it was after I started writing the book that I actually enhanced all these professionals' work. That's why I really can't wait to get it in their hands first. All of them. The 10 professionals plus the 3 scientists to start with. And then, influencers to get it out there, like, Ping John, Gary Vee, and, some of these other big YouTubers to get that out there. But I've got to tell you that I want to challenge every rabbi, priest, and minister out there to say, not that I'm right, I'm past right or wrong. I'm over the need to be right. I'm just at the point where this needs to get out there. It's all about here's what I consider the God thing. God is education, totally. All right, and when we get to the arena that we can answer our own prayers, that's powerful. Now, why would I say that? Because everything is in knowledge. And that little piece inside of us that is the same, exactly identical, God's mirror image that we can tap into, our relationships, we won't be needing how we're going to merge and have a beautiful, united marriage. The skills will be taught before we get married. And once we learn this is what the churches need to be teaching. This is what we need to be going to Sunday school for, not praying to God. I have a friend of mine that says, I can pray to God or I can pray to my dog 50-50. I don't know which is which. That's always cracked me up for years. Well, he's an atheist, so, but anyway. That just cracks me up. The prayer or the meditation that we should be doing, I learned from Wayne Dyer, one of the bros, is we should be asking our source or ourselves or praying to God what we should do. What is the correct information to get to what we need? Don't ask for things or pray for all of this. We don't know if it's going to come true. I mean, you can convince yourself, and that would be one of our human characteristics that we know for a fact beyond a rock solid knowing. But the truth is, if we don't have the circle of language that comes back to itself, that gives us the scientific proof, we don't know. And this is what I want to show Oprah. This is what I learned from her, how the twins in language actually is the scientific proof beyond a shadow of a doubt. There's too much evidence. It's like, when you're in school and you wanted to check a division problem with multiplication, you could do that and it's perfect, absolutely perfect. That's what God left for us to figure out. And I, because of my divorce 25 years ago, figured that out. That's what's propelled me to keep going and keep going. I mean, and for people to have a united marriage. Now, I didn't have that with my first wife, even though I believe whatever she does, it doesn't matter what she thinks. I believe there was a deep love between us. That's why I was just amazed that she wanted a divorce and didn't want to work it out. That blew me away. Whatever reasons she made up in her own mind, as far as I'm concerned, she scorned herself. And the truth is that I would never have learned all of this if she hadn't divorced me. And it would have been better for me to stay married to her all of these years. Now, certainly I wouldn't have my daughter now that I love tremendously, but, nobody should go through the pain of divorce. I mean, it's just stupid for us as adults to go through a divorce. It really is, because if we both made a commitment of marriage of our own free will, but we didn't know how to make that work. That's the same thing as other people that get divorced. And, they can put it on, whatever. They can justify it any way they want. But the truth is, we haven't been taught the proper skills. Now, the proper skills are through religion, but it's really God's religion is us. And it's knowing that small part that is the same for all of us, bar none, bottom line, the way we get to the undeniable, irrefutable truth per issue. Now, if we can do that, we can change lives. The world will change. And I guess that's what I've set out to do 25 years ago, starting with this, divorce in modern America, nobody wins. And it was quite an experience. I mean, on that. I can tell you right now where the divorce in modern America, what I was seeking what love was. And then after I answered that question, it took me a couple of years to answer that. Then I answered what the truth was. But ironically, they were two differences of the same stick, starting at the other side. But they're the same word when you look at how they fit together perfectly. They're a polar opposite, a dichotomy. They're all of everything that explains life in life that God left for us to uncover. Now, we always hear God is love or God is the truth. Okay, well, God, love, and the truth. Well, they're all one. So that made me start to think, okay, how's this really work together? So it took me probably, I don't know, about 15 years after the divorce. And then at that time I was buying and selling houses, and I lost like a block of them. I lost like 10 of them. That put me in the hospital. I actually ended up being in a coma for a few weeks. And after I woke up, that's when I watched the 26 episodes. I had time. I was recovering. The 26 episodes from Oprah. And when she said God, love, and the truth, I was like, well, that's what I was doing. And the funny thing is the God thing kept popping up, and it was like, okay, there's something coming at me. What is it? I thought I had already figured this thing out. Okay, we're all God and we have to see it for ourselves. But that wasn't just it. The next thing was, after I watched all the 26 episodes, I was trying to make a decision if I should on each thing write down or do a video as to what and how it's different or what I saw. And I said, nah, I don't really want to do that. So I took it as the broad scope, and it came out in the form of the book. When I called John Gray, because he helped me in the video, the documentary that I did, and asked him if he wanted to write a book together. At that time, I don't think he remembered me because it was 15 years later, and plus, it was award-winning documentary that he really never got a hold of. I didn't send it to him because I had moved to Louisiana across the I live in Tucson, so that's like across the country. And I got knocked out by Hurricane Katrina. And so, welcome to Louisiana. Now go home. So, but I moved up there a couple of times trying to be next to my kids a few times. Uh, I even took the gal I'm with now with me and we moved up there. But that's when we got knocked out by the hurricane. So, anyway, now the hurricane, that would have been like probably about 10 years. By that time, we were already divorced. So, but when you back it up a second and you look at it, the you look at it like, you know, God says it's better if you get divorced to stay single. And that, I get what he's saying, because uh, I am the way, meaning that little voice inside of us, that is God, or that little part of the spiritual side inside of us that is God. No, there is no separation. He's saying it's better to fix your problems than when you have kids, because you're tied together for life, probably even the afterlife, whatever. I mean, that actually ties you together. So I said to myself, so I'm tied to two women for life, what, and afterlife? Holy crap. All right. Even though she buried her head in the sand and said that I'm this horrible person, which, I mean, she's completely wrong. If there was any wrongdoing, it was her scorning herself, because I did absolutely nothing wrong with her. I was faithful. I provided, and I loved her with all of my heart. So I don't know what more an individual can do than that. So whatever she thought, her thinking wasn't correct. It doesn't matter now. It's 25 years later. So, but that process taught me, for a marriage to work, it has nothing to do with the other person. It all has to do with oneself, God's self. I said, wow, okay, that makes sense. So, what I have to do is unite myself inside my spiritual side and my human side, because they are perfect, 50% one to another, absolutely equal, as God's motto, to be equal, equality. So I was like, okay, so it doesn't matter. So then what I'm hearing then, and what I figured out, the churches are teaching it wrong. There's an outside God that they're looking to unite. And I'm saying, no, you need to unite oneself as God. And then after you are his mere image, exactly the same intellectually, then you can go and make up, whether it's, uh, you know, a super intellectual being, super physical being, or whatever the mind wants to create. It matters not, because it's all about oneself. And the one that did it most perfectly was Jesus. That man was amazing. And then they're saying they made him out to be something that he's not, because if it doesn't fit for God, for everybody, it's not correct. Now, when you see the truth that I figured out how to come up with the absolute truth, bottom line, is the twins in language. And now when that comes out, how I accomplish that, as I said, that will change the world. Now, because of what I learned about God and myself, that self in God is the same. Now, that's the same for everybody. They're one self and God within them. That's where, when you know how to come all the way around itself to be all knowing in that way. So I looked at it and I said, all right, but how is it to be all knowing for everything? And I said, for everything, well, let's take language. I only know English, so let's look through the dictionary. And then I started looking through the dictionary and I said, wow, so here's the truth. So why is it that my sister-in-law, when she went to get her doctorate, she was saying that the academics argued, this is probably 10 years ago or something now, they argued back and forth forever because they couldn't agree on each word. And I said to myself, what's there to agree about? Isn't to be academic a specific way to look at that word? And it is. But what they neglected to do was you needed to add on some of the rules and regulations of the inside and outside and polar opposites and apply those into our rules and regulations to narrow it down, the process of elimination, but in the correct way. So that started to make sense to me. So that's all in Mary Baker's Eddy's chapter in my book, how I did it. And that's kind of where the growth came from and how I pieced that together. And I did that obviously through, the Oprah's 26 episodes, how I actually enhanced her work. Now, it started from Anthony Robbins because he's always done polar opposite words that, he's come up with these great sayings. And I was like, okay, cool. But that's the polar opposite, inside outside words that fit perfectly. And I said to myself, well, there's got to be more to that. So as I started researching and thinking over the years, where you take, where you look is from the outside and you see from the inside, those are polar opposite. They're actually perfect. And they mean the same thing, but they come from different aspects of the way it's seen. So with that being said, every word has its polar opposite. Now, when we put that polar opposite of the inside and outside together as one in a new dictionary or to enhance the dictionary, that's when, there's a lot more to that in my book. It's more of a, it's more of a content. Well, it's kind of complex to explain, but I think I did a pretty decent job. There may be, more, well, we'd have to get some academics probably to help out in that, but for the most part, I think it's done very well. Now, that leads me back, if all of this knowledge was around when I got divorced, when we started to go through problems, I think I was the one that kind of lost love for her first, but I didn't know how to come back. I just said, I'm going to stick around, man. I have 3 kids with her. I'm going to stick it out and figure out a way to come back. And I did, full-heartedly. Fell over heels for her all over again. So, I literally did it twice. So I knew that it was possible when she said she didn't love me anymore. I was like, so make a commitment so that we can get it back together. But she never did that. She said her only thing was it was a lot of little things. What a stupid thing. Learn how to control your emotions. Learn what love is, not your, fantasy love that's on TV or in your romantic novels or something like that. I'm not talking about that. Um, but by having these kids together, as I've said before, I mean, to um, all right. So now, I mean, after you unite or consummate a marriage, that's to do it humanly is to have sex. Well, in order to have sex, you ought to be fully aware of what it means to be the God self, um, and to unite yourself before you can even unite the marriage. Now, it has to be a man and a woman in a marriage because this is God's way to become one with God, because you need to be a complete human. And that takes a man and a woman to be a complete woman, um, where we're exactly equal on our own 100%. Each of us. Perfect. Symmetrically balanced. Um, Now, and gay marriages are they're the same, which is wrong. It just needs to be 100% equal, and that's not being equal. So I'm sure I'll get backlash at that. But if you look at the way that's structured, it makes all the sense in the world. And then if you and don't get me wrong here, and if you take gays as a prerequisite not to do, to explain what and how the universe, humans, and God all work in unison together, along with language, you'll be absolutely amazed. And this is where I learned it from. It's actually really cool that the non-physical side of the universe and the physical side of the universe, how they come together. It's kind of like taking the non-physical side upside down and backwards, exactly opposite and backwards to the universe, to start seeing how all of this is a mirror image of each other. And that's what they said about God's mirror image. It's we're exactly opposite and backwards, but we're all the same, and we all come to one thing. And how unison the universe works, it's beautiful. But it's all about knowledge and putting that together. And you need the foundation in my book to understand it. You really do. Because I'm going to be really curious if the pros see it right off the bat or not. I would love for them to at least read my book, all 10 of them, and then the three scientists separately. And then afterwards, sure, I'll have a powwow and speak to them and show them where I got these ideas and how they manifested into what they are today. Um, uh, it would be wonderful to see that. I just can't let it slip away. All these professionals work on how I enhance them all together, where they become one altogether. And if I miss one of them, you're not going to see it, because they all have to be together at the same time in unison, just like omnipresence, which Ping John did, that he's on his way to seeing this but doesn't know it yet. He just isn't there. And I hope my team out of India does the social media that Ping John is teaching us how to do. I hope they couple that together perfectly. Anyway, so it's all about oneself before you get married. And then with those same skills, marriage, you should be able to unite once you know stuff like get over the need to be right, or get over the fear, get over the fear of death. They're all in my book, where they're the obstacles that we face spiritually, not some made up bullshit stuff that is going around as we as humans make up. This stuff is rock solid, and it's all the way through. If I was learning how to get there, that at least taught me, it shows you where I learned to get to what it is that I know throughout the book. And it's very informative. I think you'll see that. So you'll literally see that it's not us as a religion looking for God, but it's God's religion that is us, that we're supposed to put together appropriately. Now, that's more of the way we should be looking at it. So, and God left this in us through family. And the churches have just moved it around in the wrong way. But I would like to show what they've done right and what I believe is wrong, along with the pros, because the pros will help me tremendously. As I said, I'm not a public speaker or an academic for that matter, but the pros will be able to handle this perfectly. I mean, my perfect scenario is have Oprah as my partner, to tell you the truth. You know, and when I explain this, it doesn't matter what one thinks, what one believes, or what one knows. I don't care if you're a rabbi, a priest, or a minister, because what I've uncovered actually is the whole process where it comes back to itself, which is defined for the professors in laws of thought, that which we have not uncovered through universal schooling since the inception of time. That in and of itself is huge, because it takes the academic community, the religious community, and the spiritual community to come together to explain and define God as a whole. Now, with that being said, I've done it in a way that people will understand it. Now, I'm sure there's a much better people that can do it way better than me, because I'm not one for writing. As a matter of fact, I hate it. But I went through 4 professional editors to do my book. But the truth is, she cuts so much out that I'm going to have to reunite the original manuscript once I get this thing known, and people start coming on board and say, wow, this is really cool. Let's make a thing on the website where anybody can go on and tackle it. I mean, you can go on and buy my online course now. I think it's probably 75 to 95% complete. Either way, it'll be complete by the time you actually start reading it. So when I said that God comes down to family, where God is self, so if you're a woman and God is self, that means he is you. He knows and is the way. So he is the way for a female or a male, and he is the way to unite that marriage together as one. And with all the answers and questions on how to do it, along with all the answers in the universe when you put language together perfectly from the spiritual and human side and merge them. The patterns for life and in life are all the same. And it is a formula that I put within the book that you can easily miss if you don't look at it the way it's supposed to be looked at. It, you're just going to step right over it and think you know. And that's going to be the major point of not getting to see the book of what it's truly meant in each scenario all the way through. I mean, water seats its own level. And how that's done, the mind has to see that. It's really the mind that fails us. And with that being said, that's the reason why there is no person smarter than another. It's just one person that doesn't see what the other person sees. And the more we're able to be enlightened how we are exactly the same as God and open our minds vertically, horizontally, and in the center is the truth of the truth. I mean, when we can put time and space together and how the now has all the knowledge in the universe that there is. And we, as humans, are the same as the universe to see that, but we have to know how to break it down. It is absolutely beautiful when we get to that part. Now, the closest one that's got there is probably Deepak Chopra. But he hasn't uncovered what I did through Oprah. Otherwise, he would have already, said it. Nobody has uncovered what I have when it comes to the twins in language, based on all of these professionals, the religious leaders, and also the academic leaders, where all the communities are like the omnions present, where it is God everywhere all at once at the same time. That's what it means. And when humanity comes up with what I just said, which I've already uncovered, and it's in my book, and what I did not lay out perfectly and understandably, I want one of the pros to help me write it out, to make it so it's crystal clear if the event happens that I didn't articulate it properly. And if I didn't, let's make it right. Anyway, so back to the family. If we're exactly equal, the man and the woman, well, when we have that child together, we've consummated our marriage sexually. But when we consummate it spiritually, what happens after you have sex? The possibility is to have a child. Now, that child is, if we would have known this prior to my marriage, is if you have kids, you really should never have sex again with somebody else. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. That's what God is saying. Because there's so many things against it. It's insane of the pain that just one person can get. The other person, it really doesn't matter. I mean, for the person making the decision, they don't see the pain, and even they have the pain themselves too, and they don't know why they're doing it. And I have no idea. I haven't even talked to her for maybe 10 minutes in 25 years. So I really don't know what the person making the decision. Now, the ones that I talked to in my documentary that are 10 or 15 years later just said, I wish I would have given it more of a chance. I just really didn't give it enough of a commitment. That's what I heard. I didn't really hear that he was abusive, he was this, or, she was this, blah, blah, blah. But I always heard he's an asshole and she's a bitch. Bar none, bottom line, I figured it out that the cost of divorce is divorce in and of itself, because it turns into a disbelief in each other. Well, mine wasn't a disbelief. I just didn't want to be taken advantage of, and I wasn't. And that's the truth of the matter. Bar none, bottom line, love didn't mean anything. In that part, after she separated, I said, "Well, it's done." So I treated it so. Even though I tried to get her back, probably for 5 years after I got divorced or something, whatever. I mean, that part doesn't even matter. What matters is my kids grew up without their real dad, and I can tell you this right now: there's a lot that they missed. They could have learned from me that they were robbed of, and I'm saddened about that. I don't care what they think now. They're adults, so what they can learn from me is what their kids uh, should learn about getting married and having a significant other and being with one for life, and knowing how to get to the one truth for each issue. Now, I can't really wait to show them how to do it when they see that this is catching on from my team in India doing the correct internet profile, getting me an omnipresence around the world. That's going to be the next thing that I'm going to master, because like I told my team when I hired them, I said I know nothing, and I mean nothing, about social media, but by the time I'm done, I'm sure I'll be teaching you. And uh, I